Do, 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 do. Hey, but bum bum ba. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Five Stars or Better. I'm your host Boom Boom, and of course I'm joined by always my partner in crime, Dave Coco. What is up, brother?
Hey, nothing much, man. Just super excited getting some 5 stars done. I got one more month, and then hopefully we can rock some more shows. But
Yeah, man, we're working our way through the 80s, man. We're not quite done, but we're getting close. This week we've got some tag team action here. Dave Meltzer, made a list of matches that he ranked 5 stars or better, and so Coco and I decided, let's check them all out. Let's see if it's really worth all the hype. And so far, for the most part, we can understand why. We've been very pleasantly surprised by a lot of these matches. And this week, we're landed on a tag match from New Japan. This was March 20th, 1987 at Spring Flare Up Night 21. You had a tag team match. It was Akira Maeda and his tag team partner Nobuhiko Takada taking on Keiji Mutoh and Shiro Koshinaka. This Coco was very pleasant here. I had to do some research on this. Now, for those of you who have been following our podcast, I had already mentioned Takeda earlier because he was in a UWF match that was ranked 5 stars or better. So if you want to find out a little bit more about him, you might want to go back to that one. It's probably, I think it's like maybe the third or fourth match we actually reviewed. Anyway, so the first guy that I'm going to take a look at is Akira Maeda. This guy debuted in 1979. He went on excursion to the UK, to the World of Sport, and he was he was of Korean descent, actually, and he was actually I don't know if he was at this point, but it was eventually become an 8th degree black belt in Kyokushin Budokai. If I'm mispronouncing anything, I'll just want to say I apologize. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just like you see it, you're like, oh yeah, I've totally got this, and then you read it, you're like, I don't know how to read.
reading is hard.
Yes, it is. But anyway, after his debut in '79, he actually had a brief stint in the WWF in 1984. He even went to as I mentioned earlier, the UWF. It was a group of, I should mention that he got his start with New Japan, but he was among the group of defectors from New Japan who went to the UWF, and then but he left in 1985. He got fired, actually, because he had a match with Satoru Sayama, the original Tiger Mask. These two had, let's just say, differing philosophies about professional wrestling and what it should be. One wanted to focus more so on strikes. The other one wanted to focus more on submissions. It's kind of like, what's better, Pepsi or Coke? And it came to blows in the ring, quite literally, because he kicked Sayama in the groin intentionally, and he wound up getting fired for it. So he wound up going back to New Japan at the time. And joining him was his tag team partner in this is Nobuhiko Takada. At this time, again, he was one of the people who had, he had disputes about, again, in the UWF about what wrestling should be. So he had left, and these two were actually playing the part of invaders, because even though technically they were both gone and fired, they were both basically like, playing like they were invaders from the Universal Wrestling Federation. And then, and let's take a look at their opponents. First, we have Shiro Koshinaka. Now, he started in All Japan Pro Wrestling in August of 1978, and he got his first win in 1981. He beat Misawa, and there's a reason why I mentioned all this. He beat Misawa to win the Lou Thez Cup. and then he wound up going to EMLL, which is now CMLL, in 1984. And this is where he kind of had some problems, not necessarily with going to EMLL, but he was over in excursion in Mexico, and then All Japan started to push Misawa. That is somebody that he had beaten, and so he was getting promoted, but yet he was still stuck in Mexico. So he left, and he went to New Japan, and in 1986 he became the inaugural IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. Now, he had lost the title to Takada in May of '86 and then regained it in September. So these two are no strangers to each other, and I believe he was the Junior Heavyweight Champion going into this. Then you get to his tag team partner, Keiji Mutoh. Now, there's a lot to talk about this guy, but I'm just going to
who's this guy?
Yeah, I know. I'm giving you I'm just going to give you to who he was at this point. At this point, again, he was a black belt in judo. He debuted in October of '84. He went to excursion in the United States in '85. Particularly, he went to the Florida territory as the White Ninja, and he returned in 1986 under a little bit of the moniker the Lone Space Wolf. So these are the guys participating here. So what had happened was, in February of that year, the IWGP Tag Team titles had to be vacated by Tatsumi Fujinami and Kenjo Kimura. So they were going to have a match here between these two teams to claim the new tag team champions, to fill this vacancy. So that's where we are with this. And I should mention that these two teams were actually pretty hot here. They were really hot going into this. So, real quick, Coco, just on paper, how does this look to you?
On paper, it's, as a fan looking back, obviously Muto was the one I was looking forward to seeing the most. Mm-hmm. The others seen beforehand. The New Japan versus UWF, feud. So I never got to see this live. Like a couple of the matches. I've lived through the 80s, so a couple of these matches I actually remember seeing. I never actually seen this match prior to this, but I was super excited to see Muto and, these legends that just because when I started getting into Japanese pro wrestling, it was through the great Muta. So it's like this is right before I became a huge fan of his. So I was super excited to look forward to the match, and just the crowd seemed super hot for it. And, Meltzer giving it 5 stars. I just went in very intrigued, and it always helps to be a fan of one of the wrestlers. And, a lot of these wrestlers in this ring at my age, besides Muta, just you were told about how legendary they are. Oh, Takada, he was legendary. But if you didn't live through it, you're just going, So, yeah, I was very excited to go into this match watching it.
And I want to point out a couple of things. Like right here is, I think just by gauging my crowd reaction when they came out, is Shiro Koshinaka was really over, as was Akira Maeda. Now, and this is but this is actually kind of interesting because the year before, in '86, Maeda had an incident with Andre the Giant in the ring. And I finally just decided to check it out. But it was the year before, it was April in '86, he had a singles bout with Andre the Giant. And it wound up being, now everybody's going to tell you it was bad, and I went into it thinking, oh God, this is going to be horrible. But when I actually watched, I guess maybe since I lowered my expectations, I was like, oh, no, that wasn't that bad at all.
Yeah, but you also got to remember, this is probably, the 80s?
Yeah.
Wrestling's horrible in the 80s does not match some of the sports entertainment horrible that we had to live through. So being horrible in the 80s was not the same as being horrible during dun, 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 error.
Yeah.
Just that error just gets a sound effect, by the way. We don't even mention it. It just gets a sound effect. Fucking errors suck balls.
As you can probably tell, Maeda had a little bit, I don't know, his reputation is very difficult to work with. This guy took a lot of things very seriously. One of the things, he had a real life, feud or disagreement, I guess. That they just, the one was like oil and the other one was like water. They just didn't mix. They didn't mesh. They rubbed each other the wrong way. Maeda had a problem with Antonio Inoki in real life and absolutely refused to work with him. And, that would have been a money match. But, Maeda had a reputation as a guy who he took things very seriously. He wanted to protect himself, and, no nonsense kind of guy. And so with that being said, now what actually happened, behind the scenes thing, it's disputed. One story has it that Andre was intoxicated into this match and just wasn't in the mood to play. Or two, these two were supposed to have a match, but they couldn't agree on who was going to take the pinfall because neither one of them wanted to lose, and neither one of them, it just had one of those. It was more of an ego thing. I'm not going to lose to this guy, so they couldn't come to an agreement on who was going to take the pinfall. And then there's a third one that Antonio Inoki got in Andre the Giant's ear and just told him, you know what, you need to teach Maeda a little lesson in humility, and just no sell his stuff and bring him down a peg.
Dude,
Well,
I would hate to have to learn a lesson from Andre the Giant.
oh
I would
yeah,
despise that. No matter how strong or tough you are, to learn a lesson from Andre the Giant, woo wee.
yeah, and here's the thing: like when they got in there, you could see Andre was kind of like kind of dizzy, and just kind of. I'm not saying he was drunk. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm just saying that that's the allegation, that he was intoxicated. And, they did like a little bit of a sloppy takedown. And then you could really see that, unless it's one hell of an acting job, Maeda was really legitimately getting frustrated with Andre the Giant. And he actually took him down legitimately like 3 times, like single leg takedowns. Even executed an arm bar in that incident, a knee bar. You could see, it was mainly just Maeda circling Andre, following him around, and Maeda finally just landed some legit thigh kicks on him. And like you could tell he was really laying it in. Antonio Inoki came out. That caused a little bit of a ruckus. He was trying to get them back on the same page. It didn't work. He called for the match to end, and they just ruled it a no contest. So as far as what actually happened, I'll never know. And then I want to bring up Shiro Koshinaka, because when he came out, they were cheering too for him. So it's, just from what I'm picking up with the crowd noise, they were both into both of these guys, and they're on opposing sides.
And I want to mention this every time there's an old school match in Japan. Japanese people cheer for good wrestling. This whole they're being respectful and waiting shit is a lie that foreigners say that can't get over. I want to say that every fucking time we see a hot Japanese crowd. It is the biggest myth in the world. It is the thing that when you go to Japanese events blows your fucking mind. Oh, they don't cheer. No, they don't cheer for shit. They cheer for the good stuff, boys. They cheer for the good stuff. Sorry, Booms. I know I sound like a broken record. But every match we go back from the 80s and 90s to Japan, and the fact that Meltzer's the one rating this, we'll probably go there often, I'm going to bring this point up. Booms, just know I will always bring up this point.
Okay. Well, okay, you got Maeda and Takada and the black trunks, Koshinaka and Mutoh in longer trunks. They have a little bit of a meeting up in the ring. I guess referee's instruction. They have handshake, bell rings. Takada takes over early. He's throwing some kicks. Everybody's kind of filling each other out. There's a little bit of a tie-up. They start doing there's actually a lot of good, legit, tag team wrestling in this, frequent tags going in and out. I guess the guys in the black trunks, I guess maybe you could call it, since they're the invaders, they're the bad guys. There's some decent armbar, knee bar exchanges. A little bit of an MMA feel for this. This is way ahead of its time. Remember, this is before Pancrase. This is before, what we now know as MMA is in the mainstream. So this is, in my opinion, this is ahead of its time.
It definitely is. And I just want to add something to that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, do you think a lot of these confrontations, you talk about Andre, you talk about the Great Inoki, you talk about some of these confrontations, do you think it's because martial artists and shooters didn't have a legit home? So they would come in, meet entertainers, or say, "Hey, put me over," and I'm like, "Dude, I'm a fucking quadruple black belt in fucking the greatest martial art in the world. Why would I do that? I've
Well,
won gold medals in amateur wrestling. Why would I do that? Do you think?"
funny you should mention that because Maeda had a philosophy. He really did not like the U.S. style of wrestling. He just did not. I don't want to go as far as to say that he hated Americans. He just hated the American style of wrestling because he believed it should have been more like a legit, like sports competition. Again, strike submissions. Whereas, over in the U.S., I mean, even the stuff that we saw with Jim Crockett Promotions, it was, a show. It was essentially, it was a show. It was fed off emotion, and he just had a philosophy that that completely disagreed with that. In fact, that's kind of how I know how Pancrase got started. It was, a bunch of wrestlers said, well, what if we did wrestling, but for real? And that's kind of how it got started. But again, this is ahead of its time. There are a lot of right now, the guys in the black trunks, Maeda and Takada, really working over, God, who was it? Look at my notes here. Koshinaka was just, I mean, they were just leveling him, had him cut off, and was having Muto just keep constantly going for reaching for the tag. They would the good guys would start winning, boom, get cut off. I want to make sure, I'm going to add something in here. A tombstone pile driver is used in this match.
What? First time ever.
Yeah, I know. First time it's ever happened in Japanese wrestling. And I'm going to bring up some more things because I know there's people who criticize wrestling today for not selling or they should sell certain moves certain ways.
I'd like to call those people delusional because fucking what they think wrestling is, that never existed. Go on.
Yeah, and so they had some good stuff. Koshinaka had used a sharpshooter. He was in one, managed to get to the rope. The crowd had cheered. He started eating some kicks. The crowd reacted because there was like a small package. Muta broke up something with a Muta salt. Actually, the good guys in this one went and Muta and Koshinaka hit a spiked pile driver, and that was good for a 2 count. And again, I want to bring this up, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, they're just spot monkeys. They just do this stuff, and they just bounce right up like nothing happened. They didn't sell it. I'm like, dude, this is 1987. They did the exact same damn thing.
Yeah.
So this is not anything new. I'm not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it happened. It's happened before. Pace started picking up. There was an attempt. There was a near fall with a backslide. There was a sharpshooter on Koshinaka, but the Muta, Keiji Muta went in there and broke it up. Maeda tossed him to the outside. He was going to go back to put the sharpshooter on Koshinaka, but he rolled him up for a surprise pin. 1, 2, 3. Muta and Koshinaka, Koshinaka, they win the match, and crowd's just eating it up. They get handshakes all around. They're presented with the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team titles. There's a trophy presented, and insane.
I miss the big trophies. I really do.
Oh, yeah, not just regular. I mean, those ridiculously big trophies.
Yeah. Overall, the things that sticked out to me was the kicks. The kicks were amazing in this match.
I love that one spot where I think it was Koshinaka missed, went for a kick, missed it, got caught, and got German suplexed right on his damn head.
Yeah, the suplexes were another thing. The crowd being hot. I don't think, and granted, I don't remember the crowd ever cooling down. They were just into this all throughout the match.
They were in it, especially for Maeda. They were really in it for him, and then eventually they really got behind Koshinaka.
Yeah.
They really got behind those two. Now, I don't think it was any disrespect to, to Takeda or Muto. No disrespect to them, but I mean, they just didn't hit that level yet at this point. But the crowd was just really, really behind them. I love the fact that I'm just going to say for the sake of this conversation, the bad guys, the guys in the black trunks, were making frequent tags. They were working on one guy, and eventually they make the comeback, boom, then they cut it off. and then they'd start getting some more momentum. Boom, cut it off. They made use of rest holds. I think it was a really well laid out match.
Yeah. I also thing that sticks out to my mind besides the crowd, the kicks, is, and we've brought this up in a couple matches, and sometimes going back and watching old stuff, you realize there's stuff that's missing today, and you shouldn't abuse it, but I like the confusion. Like the two guys outside the ring, they literally looked confused. It was a close call. Now, in today's pro wrestling, if it's a close call, no one looks confused. Like here's an example. The two guys on outside, Muda, and I apologize who the other one was on the outside of the ring when the roll up happened. It was a close roll up, 1, 2, 3. There was a little bit of confusion, and then bam, they say who the winners are, and the guys outside the ring are like, who won? Who won? Like there was like legit confusion. Where like if that happens today, Sheamus just starts walking towards the back. Oh, well, I know we lost the match. I saw it. Someone told me before the show began. You know what I mean? Like, there's no confusion. And I don't say we should have confusion every match, I assure you. But if it's a close finish, even if it's like 5 seconds of confusion, that looks real. Like, I feel like that's missing.
You see that in sports all the time. The guy slides into home plate as the ball comes barreling through. Did he make the tag in time? Is he safe? Is he out? Is he safe? Is he out? Referee's got to make a call. Receiver catches a pass. Was the foot in? Was his foot in? Was his foot in? Let's go look at instant replay. There's always that just okay. They called a penalty here. Well, I didn't see what was going on. Can I look? Let's go back and do the replay. I'm not sure what the flag was for. That happens in legit sports all the time. So I think you can utilize that, make it give a little bit more of a realistic feel in wrestling if you did stuff like that.
Yeah, and you don't have to do it all the time, but it's 2 or 3 matches in a row that it's been a close call. So obviously, if Meltzer likes close call matches, I just like the fact that the people around, and I used to give this compliment to Ring of Honor. When Ring of Honor was in its prime, we're talking Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, in its prime, people would always ask me, why is Ring of Honor better than ACW? Why is Ring of Honor better than TAP? Why is Ring of Honor better than most independents? And I know it sounded like an insult, but it was true. I was like, they do nothing better. And they're like, what do you mean? They have to do something better. They're successful. I'm like, no, they do nothing better. What I mean by that is, when nothing is going on, in Ring of Honor in its prime, in this match, in a couple of matches we've seen 5 stars or better, when nothing is going on, they don't drop who they are. When nothing was going on, CM Punk was still CM Punk. When nothing was going on, Samoa Joe was still Samoa Joe. Now you look at a lot of independents. When nothing's going on, they're just like, all right, I'm just going to wait. It's kind of like, I'm going to use a video game thing here. It's kind of like, it's a real world situation and everyone is part of it versus, a video game where you're like just waiting for you to go. Like when you're just playing a game and there's a computer character and it's like, I am waiting for you to press that button. I am waiting for you to press that button. So like, I know it sounds weird, but I miss wrestling being good at nothing. Mm-hmm. Like you see when the cameras are not on. And I guess it's selling, but it's more than selling. You know what I mean? It's, you walk outside that fucking curtain, that's real. Where more of it's like, they go out there and they're like, okay, at 4 seconds, when he hits the ropes, I got to lift him up. Okay, 4, 3, 2, 1, lift him up. Okay. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I kind of missed that, and it kind of goes with the confusion. So when Ring of Honor was at its best, and I apologize, I haven't watched Ring of Honor in a while, but according to ROH fans, it's not at its best right now. They did nothing perfect. And I think a lot of these 5-star matches, they're doing nothing perfect. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. I think this was a little different than most. I'm just going to say something as far as 5-star matches. I feel like this is the first 5-star match where Meltzer, and you can't get it in his head, but you got a feeling. This is my hypothesis. I don't know if I used that word right. Let's pretend I did. This is my scientific guess, is that this is the first one that got 5 stars because of crowd reaction. And maybe story. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you. Okay, so this was given 5 stars. Do you agree?
Whew, this is the one that was tough. It was a great match. I think. I don't know. I think this is the hardest one that had to do 5 stars, to be honest. Because it had 4 stars, it had an invasion angle, it had a hot crowd, it had a confusing finish. It wasn't bad. I'm saying it gives 5 stars, but I think this is his weakest 5-star rating so far. Like when I moving forward, because and I'm just gonna say something from Randy Harris. Randy Harris used to be a boss of mine. He was my senpai in sports. He's like, whoever the worst person in the Hall of Fame is, that is the line. You know what I mean? If you're like, okay, if, let's just pick on someone, a baseball player, Mookie Blaylock. I don't know why I thought of Mookie Blaylock. Sorry, Mets fans. If Mookie Blaylock gets in the Hall of Fame, that means if you're better than Mookie Blaylock, you should be in the Hall of Fame. If you're worse than Mookie Blaylock, you shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. I think this is the 5-star Mookie Blaylock line. You know what I mean? If you're better than this match, you get 5 stars. If you're worse than this match, you don't get 5 stars. And I think the crowd has a lot to do with it, and the UWF New Japan tension has a lot to do with it. So I don't know. I think it's its weakest 5 stars, and I think if you recreate this, let's put this in. I don't know, what did WWE call it? The Thunderdome. Let's put this in with no crowd. I don't think this is a 5-star match.
Well, interesting. Well, first of all, I don't think it's the worst of the 5 stars that we've reviewed so far. I think it's way better than the Fantastics versus the Sheep Herders, and I definitely think it's better than Brody and Stan Hansen versus the Funks. I think it's better than that. I think it had a good flow, had a good feel, great. They paced it just right. It never wore out its welcome. It was never one of those, okay, it needed to be 5 minutes longer. No, it needed to be 5 minutes shorter. It never felt that way. It felt like it was the absolutely perfect length. It had a great finish, believable finish. Everybody looked good at it. I mean, it just looked like, the guys who lost, well, that could have happened to anybody. Nobody looked bad at it. Crowd was into it. I think it had a good, good finish, a good, they made use of the rest holds. So I think it's definitely, probably one of the better matches that we've seen on here, especially when it comes to tags. So yeah. I think it deserves that. But does it hold up? If you were to put these guys into a time machine,
yeah,
they pop out now and they do this match on WWE or Ring of Honor or AEW or New Japan now, does this match still get 5 stars?
Honestly, I think it depends on the company. I think it depends on the fan base. I think Ring of Honor, it gets 5 stars. I don't think it gets 5 stars in WWE. I think that audience looks for something different. So I think it's the eye of the judge. It's the eye of, the crowd. So this is tough. I mean, I don't know if it's a bullshit answer, but I think it depends on the audience. Is that fair?
Yeah, I guess. I guess that's a fair argument. The audience does. I mean, right now, I guess we're saying this because as of this recording, we're still in the pandemic, and crowds, if they're allowed at all, are limited, and so we're really missing live crowds. We're really missing, fans, live in the arena, packed out to capacity, reacting as things happen, whether it be good, bad, and different. I mean, we're just really missing that. So I think that's why we're harping on the crowd so much.
And maybe you're right. Maybe it's just the fact that we haven't seen live crowds in pro wrestling or giant live crowds in pro wrestling, and you're even told not to cheer. Maybe we are at this time fucking noticing it way more than we would have ever noticed before.
Right. There's just little bit of things you take for granted. I mean, you just don't think about it, and then it gets taken away from you, and you do. So I guess that's why we're really oh wow, listen to that crowd. This is, it's like you want to tell your kids, like, see, look, these are people who didn't have to wear masks because there was no disease going around, and they could sit in their seats all packed together. They could cheer, they could boo, they could do whatever they wanted.
It's weird time.
Yeah, weird time.
The
But
worst part is we don't know how this is going to age. Like, this really might be a thing that never gets fixed, or maybe it's fixed and we're fine. It's a weird time we're living in. So it's even we're looking back at time. But yeah, go on, Booms.
all right, so after the match, following the match, the victory by the good guys would be short lived because they would because both Muta and Koshinaka would lose the championships to Maeda and Takada in 6 days. 6 days later, they lost the championships to him. Now, Akira Maeda, he got into a little bit more hot water later that year because in November of '87, during the six-man tag match, he legit kicked Ricky Chushu in the face during the six-man match and broke his orbital bone.
This guy needed to be in the UFC in Pride before that even existed.
Oh yeah, wait till you hear. Oh, trust me, I got more on this guy. There was controversy about it because I mean, Ricky Chushu was obviously just really not happy about that. Because he got kicked in the face.
Oh, what an asshole for not understanding getting kicked in the face.
Exactly, and so he kind of wanted to tie it up, so they had to improv a finish, and they wrapped it up. So there was controversy that that Maeda was being reckless, but others maintained that it was just a blown, like they just Chushu missed the cue to guard himself because the referee had even said that Maeda, like the cue was he touched him like he tapped him on the back, and then that was supposed to be the key for him to get his hands up. So he tapped him on the back, he threw the kick, but Chushu had his opponent locked in the sharpshooter, and boom, he got clocked hard, and he finished the match. He was fine, but he wound up missing like a month because of that broken orbital bone. So after being suspended, they asked him, will you go to Mexico and learn lucha libre? And he told them no. And so he left New Japan Pro Wrestling in February of '88, and then he went and formed the newborn UWF along with his tag team partner Takada. And that did not last long because that dissolved in December of 1990, again over some disagreements over how things should be run, styles, and eventually he formed Fighting Network Rings in 1991, and he amassed.
I totally forgot about that. That was interesting and fun.
Yeah, he had a 7-5 record with that. He retired from active competition in 1999. The rings, folded in 2002 mainly because of pride. The company pride, not because of his pride, but the company pride. But it made a comeback in 2008, and that's the last word I've had on him. Now, as far as Shiro Koshinaka, he actually had to vacate the junior heavyweight title in August that year due to an ankle injury. He returned, and he wound up winning top of the Super Juniors tournament in 1988. I guess that's the precursor for the best of the Super Juniors. He was a 3-time champion, and he eventually moved to the heavyweight division in 1990. He did some work from War. He had another tag team title reign, but this time with Junichiro Tenryu. He founded Ishiguma. I've just butchered that, and I apologize. It was a heel faction. He did a little bit to help out All Japan after the Noah Exodus. He was in the Triple Crown tournament. His contract with New Japan expired in 2003. They did not renew it, so he became a freelancer. He started wrestling for, wrestling around. He wrestled Pro Wrestling 01 for DDT. He did appear in the New Japan Rumble in 2010. Was like the second to last guy. He wrestled for Hustle in 2008, and he's still going today, believe it or not, Coco. He's been doing work for All Japan. He's been doing work for Noah, and recently did a Giant Rabbit tribute show on February 4th of 2021.
That's amazing that they're still going strong, We're talking about early 80s, and these guys were in their prime. I mean, Muta is just about to hit his prime, but his career, out of these guys, he's the Michael Jordan, But he was still, like, these guys were in their prime, and some are still going strong today. Is insane.
And as far as Keiji Muto, I mean, he was really just starting. He was just starting to hit his stride because the next year, in January of '88, he went to excursion in Puerto Rico and Texas. He appeared for WCW in 1989 and became the television champion for a brief time. He went back to New Japan in 1990. In 1992, he defeated Riki Choshu and he became the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. He had an incident in September 1990 with Hiroshi Hase, got busted open, thus creating the Muta scale, and one of the most brutal blade jobs ever. He would lose his IWGP Championship to Hashimoto. He would ultimately be a 4-time champion. He would go to All Japan. I'm trying not to spoil too much because he keeps appearing. I'm going to keep kind of telling you guys what he was up to at that time, but just I got to bring this up, man.
Yeah, well, the thing is with Muto or Muta, depending on the time period and what country he's in.
Okay, I'll bring that up too. Like the Great Muta was something he primarily did here in the United States. However, he would break that out from time to time for special occasions in Japan. So kind of like the thing I could compare it to is like Finn Balor bringing out the demon, with the paint and everything.
Yeah.
It was like that. He was mainly known for it, doing the Great Muta thing here in the United States, but he was just Keiji Muto in Japan, and then he would break out the Great Muta for like special occasions. Do all kinds of crazy stuff. He would do like NWO Japan. He went to All Japan in 2002. In fact, he even won the IWGP and the Triple Crown Championship in 2008. In fact, he and Satoshi Kojima are the only two people who've actually done that, held those championships simultaneously. He shocked the world one more time in February 19th of 2021. He was in Noah and he won the GHC Championship, which now ranks him up there. He is now only one of 3 people to have held the main belts in those 3 main promotions at any point. The only other 2 people to do that is Kensuke Sasaki and Yoshihiro Takayama. So Muta's up there with him now. So there was only, since Noah's been around, I think it's been about 21 years, a little over 20 years now since Noah's been around. So it's only been about 20 years this could be possible. And in that time, only 3 people have done it. And now Muta is one of them.
Nice. Love it. So, yeah. I could talk about, like, Muto is by far my favorite pro wrestler of all time. Ric Flair is up there. Okada is my current favorite pro wrestler, but to me, he's just the man. And I'm glad we're doing these 5 stars because you're gonna notice that name a lot. So just great piece of history, and I look forward to the next match. What's the next match, Booms?
Well, you know what we're gonna do. We're going to go back to Jim Crockett Promotions one more time. I know we've done this match 2 times before, but you know what they say, the 3rd time's a charm. We're going to see one more time Ric Flair versus Barry Windham, NWA Heavyweight Championship on the line. And this took place a couple of months later in the next month, April 11th, 1987.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So
I just can't wait.
Roughly 2-3 weeks after this happened, they had another 5-star match.
No, it's weird. I don't know, maybe because Meltzer gets a bad reputation online. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he was the first one to do stuff, and you have to knock down the king. But I kind of want to see where people start disagreeing, because right now I'm just super excited going back nostalgia land and seeing some of my favorite wrestlers. So yeah, I'm really excited for it. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check me out on twitch.tv/KocoSports. Me, Yuri the Black are doing stuff on this channel, and also going to be doing stuff on Coco Plays YouTube. Check out my cartoon, Awkward in Japan. Got 2 books, Lucky the Orphan, Operation Freak Show. Buy 27 copies of them. Tell your friends. And just like Meltzer, leave 5 stars. Booms, do you have anything to say before we wrap this bad boy up?
Yeah, no, just like, subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or all KocoSports.com. That's KocoSports.com, Serum for Combat Sports, where the world goes to kick ass, and most importantly, where it's okay to be a passionate fan.
And with that, I am over. Ba-na-na-na-na-na. Hey, ba-dum-bum-bum-bum.